One against an Empire the War Council chamber of the Zephyrian flagship stretched like a cathedral of chrome and shadow. Admiral Krex stood at the center, his massive form casting long shadows across the holographic display that showed the contested world of Kepler 442b. His scales gleamed purple-black in the artificial light, and his four arms gestured with theatrical precision as he addressed his assembled commanders. Behold the pathetic response of the humans. Krex's voice boomed through the chamber, each word dripping with contempt. The hologram shifted to show Earth's diplomatic transmission. They have 3 solar cycles to abandon their illegal settlement on Kepler 442b. We offer them this courtesy because we are not monsters. We are civilized. Commander Thane, his second-in-command, shifted uncomfortably. Admiral, their response was unexpected. Krex's mandibles clicked in amusement. Unexpected? They sent 1 soldier. 1. His laughter echoed through the chamber, joined by the cruel chuckles of his officers. Perhaps they misunderstood our message. Perhaps they thought we requested a messenger, not a military response. The hologram flickered, showing the approach vector of a single Earth transport vessel. It was sleek matte black and no larger than a Zephyrian fighter craft. Krex studied it with the lazy interest of a predator watching prey. Our intelligence suggests their entire colony consists of 200 scientists and their families, Thane reported. Agricultural researchers, terraforming specialists, children. They pose no military threat. And yet they defy us, Krex mused. Send this single soldier as if one human could stand against the might of the Zephyrian Empire. It is not defiance, it is madness dressed as courage. The transport ship broke through Kepler 442b's atmosphere like a falling star. Inside its cramped cockpit, Lieutenant Maya Chen ran final systems checks with mechanical precision. Her enhanced physiology meant she could survive the brutal deceleration that would kill an unaugmented human. The ship's AI spoke in her earpiece with a calm, synthesized voice. Atmospheric entry complete. Target LZ confirmed. Hostile contacts detected across 7 sectors. Recommend immediate evasion protocols. Maya smiled grimly. Negative, Control. We're not here to hide. She studied the tactical display, showing Zephyrian positions scattered across the planet's surface. Their main base squatted like a metal tumor in the valley where the human settlement had been. Smoke still rose from buildings that had been home to families just days before. The transport touched down in a grove of native trees, their silver bark providing natural camouflage. Maya stepped out, her combat suit automatically adjusting to the planet's atmosphere. The suit was a masterpiece of human engineering, powered exoskeleton, active camouflage, integrated weapon systems, and AI support. It made her faster, stronger, and nearly invisible when she needed to be, but it was the mind inside the suit that made her truly dangerous. Maya had been born in the slums of Neo-Singapore, where survival meant learning to think 3 steps ahead of everyone else. The military had found her during a street fight where she'd taken down 5 opponents using nothing but tactics and improvised weapons. They'd offered her a choice, prison or service. She'd chosen service and had never looked back. Her first target was a Zephyrian patrol post on the settlement's eastern edge. 3 guards lounged in the shade of their armored transport, their weapons casually propped against the vehicle. They were laughing about something, probably the humans' pathetic response to their invasion. Maya moved through the undergrowth like a shadow. Her suit's active camouflage bent light around her, making her nearly invisible. She was 10 meters away when the first guard's head snapped up, some instinct warning him of danger. Too late. Maya's plasma rifle fired 3 times in rapid succession. The guards dropped without a sound, their weapons clattering to the ground. She moved quickly, dragging the bodies into the transport and setting it to autopilot. To any observer, it would look like the patrol had simply moved to a new position. Back in the Zephyrian Command Center, Admiral Krex reviewed the initial reports from his ground forces. The human transport landed in Sector 7. A single life sign was detected before it went dark. Probably equipment failure. Should we send a patrol to investigate? Thane asked. Krex waved a dismissive hand. One human wandering lost in the wilderness? Let the planet's predators deal with it. We have more important matters to attend to. But Maya wasn't lost. She was hunting. Her second target was a communication relay station built into a rocky outcropping. 2 guards patrolled the perimeter while a third monitored the equipment inside. Maya waited until the patrol cycle brought both guards to the same side of the structure. Then she struck. The first guard died with Maya's combat knife between his shoulder blades. The second managed to raise his weapon before Maya's enhanced reflexes put 2 plasma bolts through his chest. The technician inside looked up from his console. Just as Maya's armored fist caved in his skull, she planted a small device on the communication array, not to destroy it, but to corrupt it. Over the next several hours, it would feed false information to the Zephyrian Command network, reporting phantom patrols and non-existent threats. As Maya moved through the darkness toward her next target, she thought about the human families who had called this place home. Dr. Sarah Kim had been among them, a brilliant terraforming specialist who'd spent her life making dead worlds bloom with life. Maya had read her files during the journey. Dr. Kim had 2 children, aged 7 and 9, that the Zephyrians had executed her along with the other troublemakers when they'd refused to abandon their research. Her children were somewhere in the enemy base, probably destined for slavery in the Zephyrian labor camps, that Maya's jaw tightened. She'd been sent to assess the situation and determine whether a rescue operation was feasible. What she'd found was a slaughter that demanded justice. Her third target was a weapons depot, heavily guarded and surrounded by sensor arrays. Maya studied it from a distance, her suit's sensors mapping the defensive positions. 8 guards, automated turrets, motion detectors, and thermal scanners. It should have been impossible for one person to penetrate. But Maya had advantages the Zephyrians didn't know about. She pulled out a small device that looked like a metallic spider. It was a hacker drone designed to infiltrate and subvert enemy systems. Maya activated it and watched as it scurried through the grass toward the depot's main power junction point. 30 seconds later, the facility's lights flickered and died. The automated defenses went dark, and the guards began shouting in confusion. Maya moved during the chaos, her suit's night vision turning darkness into day. She killed the first 2 guards with her rifle, the plasma bolt silent and deadly. The third guard managed to activate an emergency beacon before Maya's blade found his throat. The beacon would bring reinforcements, but Maya was already moving, planting explosive charges throughout the depot. She was 200 meters away when the depot erupted in a pillar of fire that lit up the night sky. The explosion could be seen from orbit, a message written in flames. You are not safe. Back on the flagship, alarms blared through the command center. Admiral Krex stood before the tactical display, his 4 arms clenched in fury as reports flooded in from the surface. Patrol 7 has missed 3 check-ins, one officer reported. Communication relay station has gone dark. Weapons Depot Alpha has been destroyed. Sabotage. Krex demanded. Unknown, sir. No survivors to question. Thane stepped forward, his expression grim. Admiral, I recommend we increase security protocols. These incidents suggest nothing. Krex roared. Random equipment failures, perhaps some local insurgents hiding in the ruins. We are the Zephyrian Empire. We do not cower before shadows. But even as he spoke, Krex felt the first cold touch of doubt. The human transport had carried only one life sign. One soldier. What kind of soldier could do this much damage? Maya crouched in the ruins of what had once been a school, studying the main Zephyrian base through her scope. The complex was a fortress of prefabricated structures surrounded by defensive walls, guard towers, and patrol routes. She counted at least 300 enemy soldiers, along with heavy weapons, aircraft, and enough firepower to level a city. Her suit's AI whispered tactical assessments in her ear, calculating odds, suggesting approaches, marking targets. But Maya was already formulating her own plan. One that would require every skill she'd learned in the slums, every technique the military had taught her, and every advantage her enhanced physiology provided. She activated her communication array and sent a brief message back to Earth. Target confirmed. Hostiles engaged. Proceeding with extraction protocol. The message was simple, but it carried weight. Extraction protocol meant she'd found survivors. It meant she was going to bring them home, no matter what it cost. Maya Chun had come to Kepler for 42B alone, but she wouldn't be leaving alone. The Zephyrians had made the mistake of thinking one human wasn't enough to threaten their empire. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Shadows and Steal the War Room aboard the Zephyrian flagship had transformed from a place of confidence to a hub of barely controlled chaos. Admiral Krex stood before a massive holographic display showing the surface of Kepler 442b, his four arms gesturing angrily as red markers indicated destroyed installations, missing patrols, and compromised positions. 12 outposts destroyed in 72 hours, Commander Thane reported, his voice tight with stress. 47 soldiers missing, presumed dead. Communications are sporadic at best. Whatever is down there is systematically dismantling our ground operations. Krex's scales had darkened to deep purple, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. One human, he snarled. You're telling me that one human is responsible for this? The evidence suggests coordinated attacks, sir. Precision strikes on key infrastructure. Advanced technology that can penetrate our defenses. This isn't random terrorism, it's professional military action. The hologram shifted to show the latest incident. A supply convoy that had been found empty, its guards dead, and its cargo of weapons and ammunition missing. The vehicles had been arranged in a perfect circle, as if mocking the Zephyrian sense of order. Perhaps, Thane continued carefully, we underestimated human military capabilities. Krex's mandibles clicked in irritation. Impossible. We've studied their conflicts. They're primitives who still use chemical propellants and metal projectiles. Their technology is centuries behind ours. But even as he spoke, Krex remembered the human transport ship. It had been sleek, advanced, nothing like the crude vessels in their intelligence reports. Perhaps their information was outdated that on the planet's surface, Maya crouched in the shadows of a crashed Zephyrian transport, studying her next target through enhanced binoculars. The enemy had adapted since her initial attacks, doubling their patrol frequencies and installing additional security measures. But they were still thinking like a conventional military force, trying to defend fixed positions against a conventional enemy. Maya was neither conventional nor predictable, but she'd spent the last 3 days mapping the Zephyrian base, identifying weak points, guard rotations, and supply routes. Her suit's AI had compiled a detailed tactical analysis, but Maya relied more on her instincts than on computer algorithms. She'd learned long ago that the most sophisticated plans meant nothing if you couldn't adapt when they fell apart. Her current target was a guard tower overlooking the base's eastern approach. 2 sentries with thermal imaging scopes and plasma rifles positioned to cover the main gate. Maya had been watching them for hours, learning their patterns, their habits, their weaknesses. The guards were bored. They'd been told to watch for a single human, but they'd seen nothing but empty wilderness for days. One was playing with a handheld device, probably a game. The other was dozing at his post. Maya smiled grimly. Overconfidence was a weakness she could exploit. She moved through the tall grass like a predator, her suit's active camouflage making her nearly invisible. The tower's base was surrounded by sensor arrays, but Maya had studied their patterns and found blind spots. She scaled the tower's exterior using magnetic grips, moving slowly to avoid triggering motion detectors. The first guard never saw her coming. Maya's enhanced strength allowed her to snap his neck with a single twist, the sound masked by the tower's humming electronics. The second guard looked up from his game just as Maya's blade found his throat. She dragged both bodies to the tower's interior, then activated the communication system. In perfect Zephyrian, she reported, Tower 7, all clear. Beginning scheduled maintenance cycle. The response came immediately, acknowledged Tower 7. Maintenance window approved for 30 minutes. Maya smiled. She'd been studying Zephyrian military protocols from their own communications. Their rigid adherence to procedure was another weakness she could exploit. She planted a small device on the tower's main support beam, not an explosive, but a signal booster for her own communications. Then she settled into wait, using the tower's scope to study the base's interior. What she saw made her jaw clench with fury. The central courtyard had been converted into a prisoner camp. Dozens of humans were confined behind energy barriers, including children. They were thin, dirty, and obviously mistreated. Maya recognized some faces from the settlement's personnel files. Dr. Kim's children were there, huddled together near the barrier. Her suits, AI whispered tactical assessments. Prisoner extraction presents significant complications. Estimated success probability, 12%. Recommend calling for reinforcements. Maya's response was immediate, negative. We proceed as planned. She'd known this mission was likely one way from the beginning. The transport ship that had brought her to Kepler 442b was equipped with a quantum communicator, but it couldn't carry more than one person back to Earth. Maya had volunteered anyway, knowing that sometimes one person in the right place could change everything that 8S night fell. Maya began her infiltration of the main base. The perimeter was heavily defended, but she'd spent days studying the patrol patterns. She moved between guard positions like a ghost, her suit's camouflage rendering her nearly invisible. The first obstacle was the main gate's security checkpoint. 6 guards, automated weapons, and biometric scanners. Maya couldn't fight her way through without alerting the entire base, so she found another way. The base's waste processing facility was located outside the main perimeter, connected to the interior by a network of service tunnels. Maya had studied the architectural plans she'd stolen from the destroyed communication center. The tunnels were too small for normal Zephyrian soldiers, but Maya's enhanced physiology allowed her to compress her body profile enough to squeeze through. She crawled through conduits filled with recycled atmosphere and waste products, her suit's filters protecting her from toxic gases. The journey took 2 hours, but it brought her directly into the heart of the enemy base. Maya emerged from a maintenance shaft in the base's command center, her suit sensors immediately mapping the facility's layout. 12 officers on duty, monitoring communications, coordinating patrol routes, and maintaining the illusion of control. She could have killed them all in seconds, but Maya had a different plan. She planted a series of small devices throughout the facility, signal interceptors, data miners, and communication jammers. Then she hacked into the main computer system, downloading tactical data and prisoner manifests. What she found made her blood run cold. The Zephyrians weren't just holding the human colonists, they were studying them. Medical experiments, genetic sampling, psychological profiling. Dr. Kim's children were scheduled for neurological assessment. In the morning, Maya's hands trembled with rage as she read the files. She'd seen enough war to know that some acts demanded immediate justice, regardless of tactical considerations. She activated her suit's weapon systems and stepped into the command center. The first officer died before he could sound an alarm. Maya's plasma rifle fired in rapid succession, each shot perfectly placed. The others tried to reach their weapons, but Maya's enhanced reflexes made her faster than their panicked movements. In 30 seconds, the command center was silent except for the hum of electronics and the soft whisper of Maya's breathing apparatus. She accessed the main communication system and began sending false orders throughout the base. Patrol routes were redirected, guard positions were altered, and security protocols were downgraded. The Zephyrians' own rigid military hierarchy worked against them as subordinates followed orders without question, but Maya knew her window of opportunity was limited. Soon, someone would discover the dead officers, and the base would go on full alert. She needed to move fast. The prisoner compound was located in the base's center, surrounded by guard towers and energy barriers. Maya studied it from the shadows, counting sentries and identifying the control systems. 20 guards, automated weapons, and a shield generator that could only be disabled from the main security office. She moved through the base like a shadow, her suit's camouflage rendering her nearly invisible. The security office was located in a reinforced bunker, protected by multiple layers of defense. Maya bypassed the external sensors using techniques she'd learned in the slums. Sometimes the best way through a locked door was to find a window. The office had a ventilation system that connected to the main atmospheric processors. Maya crawled through the ducts, her enhanced strength allowing her to tear through metal barriers that would have stopped an ordinary human. She dropped into the security office through a ceiling vent, landing silently behind the two guards on duty. They died without making a sound, their weapons clattering to the floor as Maya's blade found their weak points. The control systems were surprisingly sophisticated, but Maya had studied Zephyrian technology for years. She disabled the energy barriers, shut down the automated weapons, and sent false signals to the guard towers reporting a system malfunction. Alarms began blaring throughout the base as the security systems detected the unauthorized access. Maya smiled grimly. The chaos was exactly what she'd planned. She sprinted through the base's corridors as emergency lights flashed red and Zephyrian soldiers rushed to respond to multiple false alarms. Her suit's AI guided her through the maze of passages, avoiding patrol routes and security checkpoints. The prisoner compound was in chaos when Maya arrived. The energy barriers were down, but the human prisoners were huddled together in terror, not understanding what was happening. Maya's suit shifted from camouflage to a bright blue identification pattern that would be visible to the prisoners. "I'm Lieutenant Maya Chun, Earth Defense Force," she announced in English. "I'm here to get you out." Dr. Kim's daughter looked up at her with wide eyes. "Are you really from Earth?" "Yes," Maya replied, helping the girl to her feet. "And I'm taking you home." When one is enough, the evacuation of the prisoner compound should have been impossible. 47 human civilians, including 12 children, needed to be moved through a heavily defended military base while enemy forces converged on their position. But Maya had spent her entire life accomplishing the impossible. "Stay close to me," she instructed the group, her voice carrying the authority of command. "Don't make any noise, and do exactly what I tell you." Dr. Kim's son, barely 9 years old, tugged on her armored sleeve. "What about the bad aliens? They'll catch us." Maya knelt to his level, her helmet retracting to reveal a face marked by determination and barely controlled fury. "They can try," she said softly, "but they're about to learn what happens when you mess with humans." The base's alarm systems shrieked through the night as Maya led the group through corridors she'd memorized during her infiltration. Her suit's AI provided real-time tactical updates showing enemy positions and movement patterns. The Zephyrians were converging on the command center, still not realizing that their prisoners were escaping. But Admiral Krex was beginning to understand the scope of the disaster. "Report," he roared as he stormed into the flagship's secondary command center. The primary facility was offline, its communication arrays jammed by some kind of sophisticated electronic warfare system. "Base security has been compromised," Commander Thane reported, his voice tight with stress. "Command center is not responding. Automated defenses are down. We're receiving conflicting reports from all sectors." Krex's scales had turned almost black with rage. "One human. One. How is this possible?" "Sir, I recommend we consider the possibility that this isn't just one human," Thane said carefully. "The coordination, the technology, the tactical sophistication, impossible." Krex snarled. "We monitored their approach. One transport, one life sign, one soldier. Are you suggesting they have some kind of invisibility technology?" Before Thane could respond, a new alarm began blaring. The holographic display showed a massive explosion in the base's power generation facility. The lights flickered and died, plunging the entire complex into darkness. Maya had reached the power plant ahead of the fleeing prisoners, using her suit's enhanced speed to sprint through the base's service tunnels. The facility was guarded by only 2 sentries. Most of the base's security had been drawn away by the false alarm she triggered. She killed both guards with silent precision, then accessed the main control systems. The power plant was a fusion reactor, heavily shielded and theoretically secure. But Maya had studied similar systems during her training, and she knew their weaknesses. She didn't destroy the reactor. That would have killed everyone on the base, including the prisoners. Instead, she overloaded the distribution network, causing a cascade failure that would take hours to repair. The base would be running on emergency power, limiting communications and defensive systems. Then she planted her last surprise, a signal beacon that would broadcast on all frequencies, sending a message to any human forces within range. The message was simple: Kepler 442b. Human prisoners rescued. Require immediate extraction. Maya rejoined the evacuation group just as the power failed. The prisoners were scared but disciplined, following her lead through the darkened corridors. Her suit's night vision turned darkness into day, but the civilians were stumbling blind. Link hands, Maya ordered. Form a chain. I'll guide you. They moved through the base like a human serpent, 47 souls connected by determination and desperation. Maya's enhanced hearing picked up the sounds of confusion and panic as Zephyrian soldiers struggled to coordinate their response in the dark. But Admiral Krex was not finished. Launch all atmospheric fighters, he commanded. Sweep the base perimeter. Use thermal imaging to locate the escapees. Sir, that might hit our own forces, Thane warned. Acceptable losses, Krex replied coldly. This human has humiliated the Zephyrian Empire. That cannot be allowed to stand. Maya heard the fighters launching as she led the prisoners toward the base's outer perimeter. Her suit's sensors detected the aircraft beginning their search pattern, thermal imaging sweeping the ground for heat signatures. Everyone stop, Maya commanded. The group froze as she assessed their situation. They were still inside the base's defensive perimeter, but barely. The outer wall was 30 meters away, but it was heavily fortified and covered by guard towers. Maya's suit had emergency protocols for this situation. She could activate a thermal dampening field that would make the group invisible to the fighter sensors, but it would drain her power cells and leave her vulnerable. Dr. Kim's daughter, Maya, called softly. The girl stepped forward, her face pale, but determined. What's your name? Sarah, the girl replied. Sarah Kim. Sarah, I need you to be very brave. Can you do that? The girl nodded. Maya handed her a small device. This is a communication beacon. If something happens to me, you activate it by pressing this button. It will call for help. Are you going to leave us? Sarah asked, her voice small. No, Maya said firmly. I'm going to get you home. But I need to clear the way first. Maya activated her suit's combat protocols and sprinted toward the outer wall. Her enhanced physiology allowed her to cover the distance in seconds, reaching the fortifications just as the guard towers opened fire. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air around her as she zigzagged between defensive positions. Her own rifle returned fire with mechanical precision, each shot finding its target. The guards had night vision equipment, but Maya was faster, more agile, and infinitely more motivated. She reached the wall's main gate and planted explosive charges on the control systems. The blast tore through the fortifications, creating a gap large enough for the prisoners to escape through. But the explosion had given away her position. The atmospheric fighters converged on her location, their weapons lighting up the night sky. Maya dove for cover as energy beams scorched the ground around her. Her suit's shields absorbed some of the damage, but she was outnumbered and outgunned. She needed a distraction. She activated her suit's emergency beacon, broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Lieutenant Maya Chun, Earth Defense Force. I am extracting human prisoners from Kepler 442b. Any human forces in the area, please respond. The response came immediately, but not from Earth. This is Captain Rodriguez, UES Defiant. We're in system and moving to your position. Hold tight, Marine. Maya's heart leaped. The Defiant was a deep space patrol vessel, probably investigating the loss of contact with the colony. But even a single warship could turn the tide of this battle. Admiral Krex saw the human ship on his sensors as it dropped out of hyperspace. It was smaller than his flagship, but it was moving with purpose toward the planet's surface. Intercept that vessel, he commanded. Do not let it reach the surface. Sir, that will leave the base undefended, Thane warned. The base is already lost, Krek snarled. But we can still prevent these humans from escaping. They will not make fools of the Zephyrian Empire. The space battle lasted only minutes, but Maya could see the energy discharges in the upper atmosphere as the two ships engaged. The Defiant was outnumbered, facing not just Krex's flagship, but also the escort vessels that had been patrolling the system. But human ships were built for speed and maneuverability, not the massive firepower displays that alien races preferred. The Defiant darted between the larger vessels like a fighter among bombers, its weapons precise and deadly. Maya used the distraction to rally the prisoners. Move, she shouted. Through the gap, head for the treeline. The civilians ran through the breach in the wall, stumbling over debris and scattered equipment. Maya covered their retreat, her rifle picking off Zephyrian soldiers who tried to pursue, but Admiral Krex had one last card to play. Orbital bombardment, he commanded. Target the base perimeter. Destroy everything. Sir, that will kill our own forces, Thane protested. They have already failed, Krex replied. At least their deaths will serve a purpose. The bombardment began as Maya reached the treeline with the last of the prisoners. Energy beams from orbit struck the base, turning buildings into molten slag and creating a wall of fire that separated the escapees from their pursuers. But Maya knew they weren't safe yet. The Zephyrians would send ground forces to hunt them down, and the Defiant couldn't hold off an entire fleet indefinitely. She activated her suit's long-range communicator and sent a message to the approaching ship. Captain Rodriguez, this is Lieutenant Chun. I have 47 civilians ready for extraction. Can you get us out of here? The response was immediate. Negative, Lieutenant. We're taking heavy fire. Our landing bay is damaged, and we can't risk a surface landing. Maya looked at the huddled prisoners, their faces illuminated by the burning base behind them. She'd come so far, sacrificed so much. She couldn't fail now. Then we'll come to you, she said that Maya's suit contained emergency equipment for just such a situation. She activated the beacon she'd given to Sarah Kim and watched as it projected a holographic display showing the locations of escape pods scattered throughout the area. Emergency Protocol 17, she announced to the group. Each pod can carry 3 people. We're going to reach orbit the hard way. The escape pods were designed for emergency evacuation from planetary surfaces. They were basic, crude, and dangerous, but they could reach orbit if properly programmed. Maya divided the prisoners into groups, assigned each group to a pod, and programmed the launch sequences. The pods would launch in sequence, making it harder for the Zephyrians to target them all. What about you? Dr. Kim's daughter asked as Maya helped her into a pod. I'll be right behind you, Maya lied. There were only 16 pods, enough for 47 civilians, but not for Maya herself. The pods launched into the night sky, like meteors in reverse, their primitive engines struggling against the planet's gravity. Maya watched them disappear into the darkness, knowing that most would make it to the Defiant despite the odds. She was alone again, standing in the ruins of what had been a peaceful colony. The Zephyrian base burned behind her, its flames visible from orbit. Admiral Krex's ships were still engaged with the Defiant, but the human vessel was faster and more maneuverable. Maya activated her suit's final protocol, a beacon that would transmit her location to any human forces in the area. Then she settled into wait, her rifle ready, her determination unshaken. She had come to Kepler 442 be as one soldier against an empire. She had proven that sometimes one was enough. Hours later, rescue shuttles from the Defiant found Maya still standing guard over the extraction site. The Zephyrian fleet had withdrawn, their admiral disgraced, and their ground forces scattered. The message spread quickly through the galaxy. The humans had sent one soldier, and she had been enough to defeat an entire invasion force. Admiral Krex's career was over, his reputation destroyed by a single human who had refused to surrender. But Maya Chun had become something more than a soldier. She had become a symbol of what humanity could accomplish when pushed to its limits. As the rescue shuttle lifted off from Kepler 442b, Maya looked down at the burning remains of the Zephyrian base. The children she'd rescued pressed against the viewports, watching their former prison disappear beneath the clouds. Lieutenant, Dr. Kim's daughter Sarah said, quietly, "Will they come back?" Maya considered the question carefully. The Zephyrian Empire was vast, powerful, and proud. They wouldn't forget this humiliation easily. But they would also remember what had happened when they underestimated humanity. Maybe, Maya replied honestly, but if they do, they'll think twice about what one human can accomplish. And next time, we might send two. Sarah smiled at that, and Maya realized something important had changed. The galaxy had been watching when the Zephyrians mocked Earth's response, when they laughed at sending just one soldier. Now, they were watching as that single soldier returned home with every prisoner safe, leaving behind only the smoking ruins of an empire's arrogance. Admiral Krex's final transmission echoed through space as his fleet retreated. "Command, this is Admiral Krex. Mission unsuccessful. The humans, they are not what we believe them to be." The transmission cut to static, but its message was clear. The galaxy had learned a new truth about humanity. Sometimes one was not just enough. Sometimes one was exactly what the situation required. Maya leaned back in her seat as the shuttle docked with the Defiant. Around her, the rescued civilians whispered among themselves, already beginning to process their ordeal. They would return to Earth as survivors, as witnesses to both humanity's vulnerability and its strength. But Maya Chun would return as something else entirely, proof that when the darkness closed in and hope seemed lost, one human being could still light a fire bright enough to burn down an empire's pride. The Last Stand protocol had been designed for exactly this scenario. When overwhelming force met unbreakable will, when many faced one, when the impossible became inevitable. It had been tested on Kepler 442b, and it had passed. In the months that followed, the story of Lieutenant Maya Chun would spread throughout human space and beyond. It would become legend, then myth, then something more powerful than either, a promise. A promise that humanity would never surrender, never give up, never accept defeat, as long as even one of their own drew breath. The Zephyrian Empire learned this lesson the hard way. Other species, watching from afar, took note. When humans said they were sending one soldier, it was no longer a cause for laughter, that IT was a cause for fear, that the end